Welcome into Jungle Tales, a Pirate Baseball podcast on deck for East Carolina. It's a 3-game series with the William and Mary Tribe. And right now, I'm very excited to be joined by their first-year head coach, Rob Mccoy. Coach McCoy, welcome in.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. I appreciate your time today. You're, of course, in your first season there in Williamsburg after 16 seasons at Niagara. So let's start right there. And what made you choose William and Mary?
Yeah, obviously, I had been down. I spent a year at JMU in the CAA, and then went up to Niagara a long time ago just to kind of cut my teeth in recruiting and hopefully get another job south. And then 16 years later, I was still there. When I took that job, I knew, like, I was determined that I had a job to do. I wanted to make the program better than it had ever been. So in all my time up there, I almost never looked for another job, just because I knew I needed to do a good job there. And then, we started growing it really well, probably in 17 and 18, and then hit a reset in 19. And then from 2020 on, we had some pretty good teams and some pretty good players. And then last year was obviously a banner year for us. It's the best year in the history of the program. Broke the school record in wins by 9. Got a couple kids drafted, and some guys that transferred after will get drafted too. So, we did it. My assistant and I, Matt Spatafor, did a pretty solid job up there. And at the end of the year, I was contacted by William & Mary and their search firm, and I had known about William & Mary. It was one of the first camps I worked when I was a young coach getting into it, and knew about the facility and the area. And I had gone to grad school at Virginia, so I kind of wanted to get back down in the state. So it worked out with my family, and my wife and I thought it was a good move. So there's a lot of great things about William & Mary's facilities. Obviously, the weather, that speaks for itself, and the CAA conference. Brian Mann, the AD, in my opinion, is a rock star. So there's a lot of reasons to say yes to William & Mary.
You referenced your staff. One of the members of your staff is East Carolina great Brad Mincy, an all-conference performer for the Pirates back from 2008 to 2011, and Brad is your pitching coach. So talk about that decision to bring Coach Mincy on board.
Yeah, it wasn't a hard decision. When it's the first time I've ever changed jobs, head coach to head coach. So it was kind of a whirlwind. But in the middle of that whirlwind, I knew the type of demeanor that I wanted in my assistant coaches, and the way I wanted them to treat players, and the passion they had for development and things like that. And I think people know that about me. So I had a couple people I really trust reach out that he had worked for right off the bat, that said, this is a perfect guy for you and for that spot. So I talked to him on the phone a couple times, was really impressed, and I'm glad he said yes, because I think he's going to do a really good job here, and we're really excited for him.
Yeah, and definitely a lot of fond memories of Brad Mincy and his time in the purple and gold. Definitely had a lot of great times with the Pirates, winning conference championships, or pitching in regionals and so forth. But as we take a look at your roster makeup, tell us just the general overview. I noticed you have guys from like 8 different states, and then also from Canada. So pretty intrigued by that, and just we'll dive into some of the specifics.
Yeah. The roster, obviously, at a school like William & Mary, with our academic standards, we're going to need to go outside the region, the state, the region, and basically be nationwide. And you've got to get a unique blend of academics and athleticism, because you're sort of like Ivy League grades, but you're playing in one of the best conferences in the country. So you gotta, the one thing we do have going for us is our climate and our facilities. And so, yeah, we've got to shake the bushes nationwide. And that's what the previous staff did here. They did a good job of doing that. I think we're going to continue to try to establish ourselves in the state of Virginia because we are a state school, and that's important to me. But we'll go anywhere we have to get guys that are good enough to help compete for conference championships here.
One of the things that jumped off the page at me as I looked over your team's numbers, a 317 team batting average. You've hit 14 home runs, close to 30 doubles, and you have, I think, 6 regulars hitting 311 or better, led by Derek Holmes at 420. You have a junior college transfer, DH/left fielder, Christian Rush, hitting right at 330, leads the team with 6 home runs, 21 runs batted in, and then also tied for the team lead with 4 doubles. Tell us about some of those offensive leaders you've had thus far.
Yeah, I mean, so, whenever you get a coaching change, some of the transition is good and some of it's not great, right? So one of the things that I knew coming in here was that some of the offensive guys were some low-hanging fruit. I knew that looking at them on film, I knew that if we took the reins off some of them a little bit and let them go up there with an aggressive mindset with the intent to do damage early in the count, but then give them strategy to not strike out late, like a team at bat, two strike approach. It's kind of things we had a lot of success with up at Niagara. More than just hitting, but an offensive game plan, an offensive idea. And that led me to hire Caleb Lang, who, I had some run-ins with along the way. He's a younger guy, but just very creative when it comes to creating offense. And so I knew between the two of us that we'd be able to kind of unleash some of these guys. And that's what you're seeing with the offense. We've got a couple of D3 grad transfers that are in their 6th year. So they've got plenty of at bats under their belt. And then, Christian Rush, he's got some aggressive pull side approach, and we just kind of let him run with it. So they're kind of, they're feeling good. We're big on the mental games. So we're talking to them about breathing routines and staying present, and things like that are kind of helping them in that regard. So that's been good.
In addition to Derek and Christian, you mentioned those Division III transfers. Tell us a little about those gentlemen.
Yeah, well, Derek is one of them. Ben Parker is one of them. He's our center fielder. He's probably going to hit lead off, and he's one of our most productive guys there. And then we've got our shortstop is Owen Wilson. He's a guy I brought in this summer. Real solid defensive piece for us, and he's starting to piece it together with the bat. And then you got a kid we lost for the year, Henry Jackson, who started the year hot. He was another guy. He was a D2 guy from Carson Newman. So, the previous staff, really valued the experience of bringing in those grad transfers, and, to a certain extent we do as well. But it's nice to have those guys, those older guys at the, in the lineup.
Shifting over and taking a look at your pitching staff, I know to a degree, it's been a struggle here early, but at the same time, I noticed a guy like Owen Pierce that has pitched, at least by the numbers, pretty well through several appearances, 5 appearances, 14 in the third, surrendering just 6 hits. So if you would give us a general overview of your pitching staff, and then some of those bright spots.
Yeah, I mean, the long and the short of our pitching staff is we're just behind the 8 ball with it, right? We got two juniors drafted in the summer, one of which we did not expect to, and then we lost 2 transfers to Power 5 schools. And then you add on top of that we lost Zach Potts for the year, who was, a pretty significant part of what they did last year. And then Calveric and Littman are both. Calveric's out for the season, and then Littman's, been out so far, and both of those guys were slated to, those are velo guys slated to come in late in important innings. And so you take those guys out, and your returners with experience are Lovaz, Pierce, and Interdonato, and those guys are pitching like crazy to try to keep us as much as we can. And the rest of the guys are young. they're either young because they haven't pitched in college yet, and even though they're not freshmen, or they're freshmen. So, in some cases, the guys are pitching before they're actually ready to pitch, and we're learning on the job. So as much as the numbers look skewed and they look bad, you throw that onto the fact that our defense has been terrible because we've got guys out of position for more injury. I've had more guys injured on this team than I've ever had before. So the pitchers are fighting like crazy and the defense is fighting like crazy. But at the end of the day, we're just depleted. So to have a guy like Owen Pierce and even Carter Lovaz come in and really, really lock down, some really important innings for us, and as we approach conference play, is going to be a huge thing. Both of those guys have been incredibly effective from the time they've gotten on campus, 3 and 4 years ago, respectively. So we're going to lean on them to kind of hold us down while we get some of these guys experience.
As we approach the weekend, tell us what you can about your rotation, and have you announced who will be starting on the mound this weekend?
Yeah, we're gonna start Lovas tomorrow and enter Donato on Friday, and then Pierce will be our we've been piggybacking him behind Lovas in tight games. So we may, we'll do the same thing, and then we'll probably end up starting Fezco or Burke on Sunday, probably Fezco. So it just depends on how it goes.
As you take a look at your schedule, last weekend you were at K-State, a super regional participant from a year ago. You also have played UVA and Penn State. Obviously this weekend, 3 at East Carolina. And just tell about your schedule, and then also that the challenge with the CAA with programs like Campbell, UNC, Wilmington, and College of Charleston.
Yeah, I mean, one of the topics that came up after I got the job and I was talking to the players, was one of the things that they wanted was to be challenged more early so that they would be prepared for the type of players they would face in teams they'd face in the CAA. So one of the weekends I added when I got the job, the East Carolina weekend was already scheduled. I added the Kansas State weekend. Probably a little ambitious, but honestly, if we were fully healthy, it would have been a really solid situation for us. But we're not, so we're up against it. But at the same time, I think anytime you have to, if you want to be the best, you got to beat the best. And if you want your guys to understand what this level looks like at a high level, then we have to play those teams and show them what it looks like. So that way they go off in the summertime, and you go off and they're talking to their buddies that are in the portal, and they're like, yeah, okay, this guy's going to help us beat Wilmington, Charleston, Northeastern, Campbell. And that's what's important, right? Because if we don't beat those teams, we're not going to win this league. So it's very vital to show them what that looks like and what that level is. And so a challenging, tough schedule is important to get us to where we want to go. And we're in a climate where we can play a lot of home games, and so you got to play those home games to take advantage of it. But going on the road and challenging your team to play at the highest level possible is an ideal situation, even if you take some lumps. Because I mean, we talk about you're either winning or you're learning, and if you don't win, then you learn what you need to do, how you need to get better, what kind of players you need, and move forward.
Coach, we appreciate 15 minutes of your time today, and best of luck, moving forward as you continue to build that program there in Williamsburg. And we look forward to catching up with you sometime down the road.
Absolutely. Thanks, sir.
Pirate Nation, that is first-year head coach at William & Mary, Rob Mccoy. After 16 seasons with Niagara, he has come to Colonial Williamsburg, and I'm very intrigued to see how Coach McCoy does moving forward. Certainly, proven track record there, and at building a program. But that will do it for this edition of On Deck. As we take a look at the upcoming opponent for East Carolina, make sure that you tune in on Sunday evening, and we'll have This Week in Pirate Baseball. Former East Carolina right-handed pitcher John White from the Coach O era will join me as we take a look back at the Pirates' midweek sweep of VCU and this weekend series with William & Mary. Be sure to follow us on social media. On social media, you can find us at Jungle Tales Pod on X, Instagram, and YouTube. Be sure to click subscribe. And then on Facebook, and Spotify. We can be found at Jungle Tales, a Pirate Baseball podcast. But that will, again, do it for this episode of the program. We'll talk to you soon. And as always, go Pirates.